Copy data from existing table to new table part 2. In previous part we have seen following points. Who are watching this part, it is recommended that please watch first part of copy data from existing table to new table part 1. In the first part we have seen structure design copy for empty table, copy structure with data from one table to another, all columns copy, specific columns copy, all rows, then specific rows, try to add constraints from old table into new table. Above points we have seen in the first part, but constraints from first table are not get into second table. So today we will see how to add constraints to already created table. Topics in today's session: add constraints to already created primary key, then unique key, unique constraint, then default constraint, not null constraint, and check constraint. So let's start. Add columns to table. Then constraints give to employee table at design and give to manager after created the table. So first we will create table employee and we will give the constraints at design time. So here create table employee, emp id, int not null, primary key, emp name varchar 50 not null, email varchar 50, unique, city varchar 50, default, New York, username varchar 50 not null, emp salary decimal 18 2, check emp salary greater than or equal to 20,000. So here are the constraints for employee table, and we will execute this query. We will execute this now. We see table has created here, so we can see here emp id, we can see here emp id, then keys, primary key employee, unique key employee, then constraints, check constraint, then default constraint. Like this all the constraints are now. These are the these are the constraints for these are the constraints for employee table. So we insert two records in the employee table. Insert into employee, employee id, emp name, email, username, emp salary, values 1, James x @gmail.com, James is 20,000. Insert into employee, emp id, emp name, email, username, emp salary, values 2, Sean y@gmail.com, Sean is 21,000. So now these two records are added to our employee table. We have seen the design of employee from here. We have seen all the constraints here. Like this, we can see all the constraints with this. Here we can see the structure of employee table. This is employee table. Then when this table has created, then now here we can see index name, primary key, then cluster, unique primary key located on primary, and index keys for which column, emp id, then unique key, employee, non-cluster, unique located on primary, then email column, then check on column, emp salary, then constraint name, then is for constraint keys, emp salary greater than or equal to 20,000, default on column city, then name of the default constraint, then new value for the default constraint New York, then primary key cluster, then primary key name, then for which column emp id, then unique, then non-clustered, then unique constraint name, then for which column email. Like this, all the constraints are present for this this employee table. So now we will execute this query, because of which we can create the manager table. We can create the structure like of manager table like employee table, and records are also added. All the records from the employee table are transferred to manager table. So after executing this query, we can get two rows affected because there are two records. So we can see here all the records from the employee table are transferred to manager table. Now we can see structure of the manager table here. Now we can see columns, all the columns, keys, constraints, figures, indexes, statics. We can see here there are no constraints from employee table are carried here with the table. Only all the fields and all the records are transferred, but constraints are not transferred from employee table. Here we can also see when execute this SP help manager. This is the table. This is the table manager and structure of this table. Here we can't see any primary key or any unique key or any constraints. So we have to give those constraints through query. We have created table manager from employee table, and all the records from employee table are transferred to manager table. We want all the records from employee table into manager table. So there are two records only, but in actual there may be thousands or lakhs of records, and after creating that table, we can't delete that table or records. So we have to alter that table, or we have to add the constraint in that table which is previously created. So now we see here now adding constraint manually with queries to manager table and check they are working properly or not. First, add primary key to existing table. Note, syntax and detail will be discussed in primary key concept. Now we will see how to add primary key in existing table in fast way. So this is the query alter table manager add primary key emp id. This is the manager table and for uh, which column emp id. For emp id we want primary key. So we can execute this query. Here query is executed successfully, but sometimes there may be error of not null column. So at that time we can execute this query first, alter table manager alter column emp id int not null. Then we have to execute this query at that time, and after that we can execute this query. So now we can see effect of this query. What is happen here? Tables, refresh the table, employee table, then columns, columns, emp id, then keys, primary key employee, then unique key. Sorry, this is the employee table. We want to see here. We are applying keys for uh, we are applying constraint for this table with queries. So here emp id, then keys, primary key manager. Now primary key is applied here. This is the primary key. We can see here. We can see the structure of manager table from here. Now we can see here primary key, primary, sorry, here primary index name, primary key. So this is cluster unique primary key located on primary. See, primary key is always cluster index and clustered and unique. So emp index keys, emp id, emp key, uh, sorry, emp id, constraint type primary key, then constraint name. This is the name of primary key. Then constraint keys for which column, emp id column. So this constraint primary key is created for manager table. Checking primary key constraint by adding rows. Example. Then we give same id here. Insert into manager emp id, emp name, email, username, values 3, word 8 @gmail.com, word sys into insert into manager emp id, emp name, email, username, values 3, martin b @gmail.com, martin sys. So here we have taken same emp id. So we will check if primary key is working or not here. Now query is executed successfully. Now here we get error. Here we get error violation of primary key. PK manager cannot insert duplicate key in object DBO manager. So like this, when we try to insert same MPID, at that time this error will always happen and it will avoid to add same emp id, so one row. Now record or rows are added in the table. We can see here, select now emp id, here 3 and here for this is 4. So both the records are now added and primary key is working properly. Now adding unique constraint to already created table. Syntax for adding unique constraint: alter table, table name, add constraint, constraint name, unique, then columns, then alter table manager, then add constraint, UK, table manager, email, unique, email. So here is the manager table name, then here is the constraint name, and here is the column which we want to add the unique constraint. So here column name must be accurate, and this name may be any name, it may be any, but here email column name must be exactly match with the column, actual column, or it will not create the constraint. So here we can execute this. Now command completed successfully. Here you can see here keys, here unique key, table manager, email. This is our unique key. Then we can see here with SP manager also. Here is the unique key, table manager in the index, UK, table manager, email, non-clustered, unique, unique key located on primary, then email, and here unique key non-cluster, constraint name, then here constraint name, and here email constraint for column for which unique key is applied. So this is unique key. In this way, unique key applied to the manager column, manager table. This way, in this way, unique key applied to manager table. So checking, we are checking if unique key is working properly or not. So for that we can see here, we make the unique key. We have given unique key for email. Here we have given unique key for email. So if there is the same email, now insert into manager, insert into manager, emp id, emp name, email, username, emp salary values 6, mike, then abc @gmail.com, mike cis, then 20,000, and here you 7. Insert into manager, emp id, emp name, email, username, emp salary values 7, sean, then abc @gmail.com, then sean cis, then 21,000. So here we can see email is same for both the records. First we execute this, then try to execute this. Now we can get error, we get the error, violation of unique key constraint, UK, table manager, email, cannot insert duplicate key in object DBO manager. The statement has been terminated. So now unique key is working properly here. If we give the space here and at that time query is executed successfully. So if there is space, this is the space will consider another character, and so according to this name is not abc.@gmail, it is consider another name. So if there is no trim working properly at that time, this can be happen, and the yeah, same email can be inserted into the table. So there must be trim always there in the query. So here now we if we change the email now, only the different emails can be inserted. So this is all about unique key, and unique key is working properly. Default constraint adding to already created table. For syntax, see video of default constraint in this channel. Then we we have applied directly the this is the query: alter table manager, add constraint df city, default New York or city. This is the manager table name, then constraint, then default, and this is the constraint name, then this is what is the value for the default value, what is default value, and then for which column. So this column must be accurate. This value may be any value, and this constraint may be any name. So we execute this query, execute, then we can see here what is the effect. Columns, keys, then constraint. Here is the constraint default df city. Here is our constraint, default constraint. We can see here also. Now here is our default constraint, then constraint name, and what is the value New York. When there is no value inserted at that time, which will be the value, default value? This is a New York. So insert into manager, emp id, emp name, email, username, values 9 mike c@gmail.com, mike sys. We execute this query. So here we have not given city name here. So insert into manager, emp id, emp name, email, username, values 10 jimmy d@gmail.com, gmail sys. So we execute this also. We have not provided the city name in both the queries. So we can see here we can see that we can see in the previous record where when this abc at the rate gmail, this is considered another name because of this, and if there is another record, another name for email, then only the email can be inserted. But if we give abc@gmail.com, then email is not getting inserted, and it is mm, unique is not allowing to insert the same image. For default constraint, we can see here we have added these two records now, and we can see here New York and New York. We have not given any value for city column, and we get the New York by default. Uh, these are the columns from the employee table which are previously inserted in the manager table, so they have a value, but after that there is no uh, default constraint applied. So here we can see null, 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 null. But after applying default constraint we can see by default value New York here. So default constraint is also working properly. Not null constraint adding to already created table. So here is the syntax: alter table, table name, alter column, column name, data type, not null. Now alter table, manager, alter column, emp name, varchar 50, not null. So if we execute this, we can see here, okay, not null constraint is not visible. 1 minute. We can't see not null, but here we can see that not null is already transferred. Only not null transferred when we transferred a record from employee to manager. So here we can see here not null already. So there is no necessity to add not null, but we added this with this query also. And here we can see here also, if we want to see here, there is no visibility of not null. We can't see here not null like this. Okay, then here emp name, this is a query: insert into manager emp id, emp name, email, username, values 11, my cd @gmail.com, then my sys. So we execute this query. We have given emp name here, but we have not given emp name in this query. So we will execute this query: insert into manager emp id, email, username, values 12, sarah @gmail.com, sarah sys. Then we can see here query compiled completed with errors. Cannot insert value not one null into column emp name table. So copy structure dbo manager column does not allow nulls, insert fails. This statement also terminated. So now this is also working properly. And if we give the name emp name, emp name, suppose we give here space only, what will happen? Query is executed successfully. One row affected. Suppose we will give null here. What will happen? Null. So query compiled with errors. what will happen? Constraint cannot insert duplicate keys in the sorry here key constraint duplicate key. Which is the duplicate key? I think this mail is a duplicate. Sarah 2. So this was the error for mail, but null is inserted. So we can see here. Select star from manager. Here is select star from manager. If we execute this query, we can see here query executed successfully. We can see here Mike. Then if there is no value at that time, value is not inserted, but we insert space at that time, space is inserted and null is inserted. So if there is no emp name here, at that time no insertion of value, or it is giving error. Or cannot insert null into emp name table. This is columns do not allow nulls. Like this it will give error, but if we insert space and null, it will not give any error. So not null is also working. Check constraint adding to already created table. Syntax: alter table table name, add constraint constraint name, check column name condition. Alter table manager, add constraint ck salary, then check emp salary is greater than or equal to 20,000. So this is the constraint name and this is the value for or condition for checking the constraint. So here we see columns table manager, keys, here constraint. Here is our ck salary constraint, which is check constraint. Here this is our check constraint. This is our check constraint. So now with this SP manager, you can see here this is the check constraint. On column emp salary, name of the constraint, then condition, which condition it is checking. Emp salary is greater than or equal to 20,000. So here we insert first, we insert the record there, which was the record last record 13. Select start from manager 13. So here 14, 15 and 16. So here insert into manager emp id, emp name, email, username, emp salary values 14, Linda e@gmail.com. Linda says then 19,000. We have given 19,000 here. So the insert statement conflicted with check constraint ck salary. The conflict occurred data in database copy table structure table db manager column emp salary. The statement has been terminated. So insert into manager emp id, emp name, email, username, emp salary values 15, Linda f@gmail.com. Linda says then 20,000. So we have given 20,000 in this record. So this is the condition equal to or greater than. So this is this value is taking by now. We can see here insert into manager emp id, emp name, email, username, EMP salary values 16 sam g@gmail.com. Sam says 21,000. Yes. One row affected. When we see here start from manager, here we can get two records, 20,000 and 21,000, and 90,000 is not allowed by this check constraint. So check constraint is also working properly. Now all our constraints are working properly. Now adding to okay, how to drop constraints created with queries we will see in third and last part of this series of copy data from one table to another. If we want to drop some constraints, if we have given the extra constraint, or there may be error, we have given wrong constraint, so we can drop. If we want to drop the constraint, how we can drop those constraints, we will see how to drop the constraints in the third and last part of the series. So that's all for today. Thank you.